All right. So welcome everyone. My name is Daniel Pasco. I'm Associate Provost at Drew, and I'm delighted to be here with you with such fabulous colleagues and such amazing panelists and students in the room. I want you to know that we are making these panels not only available synchronously, I mean that we don't only intend them to be for simultaneous participation, but we post them in the community pages for post-session consumption. And we have noticed that students are beginning to show some level of virtual fatigue that I think we're all experiencing. But they are more likely to be consuming things that are recorded, at their own time and in the way that makes sense to them. So we're really excited about making these conversations available not only during the session, but also after the session. So we're really appreciative of your time. Let me, if it's okay, before we go into introductions, let me go ahead and talk a little bit about why we're doing this and where this comes from. Then I'll pass it on to Stephanie, who will moderate the panel, including introductions of the panel. And because we are not a very large group, maybe we can do that across. Maybe that would be an exciting thing to do. But let me share my screen. And just let you know that this is part of Launch, which is a new approach to undergraduate education. And let me just, in a nutshell, tell you what Launch is. Launch has three very important goals: to help students identify a purpose at a time when 87% of our world's workforce is struggling to find meaning in what they do; to prepare for their careers at a time when we expect that our students will go through 11.9 transitions in their careers; and to prepare them to have an impact in the community and the world at a time when we're noticing that many of the challenges that we're facing have become systemic, and we seem to be at a crossroads to solve them. So purpose, career, and impact seem like a critical thing to do, and that's the focus of Launch. Launch is a curriculum of, so far, first year and sophomore students, and eventually it'll be the curriculum of all undergrad students at Drew University. Now, Launch comes to life through 7 what we call strategic high impact practices that are integrated and universal. The first one is a course called Drew 110 that is connected to any portfolio called the Launch Plan, through which we engage students in Launch and help them participate in all aspects of Launch. Just to give you an idea, the curriculum of the course is very intentionally intended to help students navigate their choices and their preparation for next steps. So when you look at this gear chart, you realize that what we do is we walk students through self-assessment, including identity development, through what matters to them out there in the community and the world, and the identification of a collection of paths because of what I just mentioned. And then part of the curriculum is engaging them in the communities we're discussing, with mentors and in meaningful experiences to begin to identify what they need to do in order to prepare for their next steps. So when we talk about this process, it's a very intentional process of self-identity, of intercultural development, of identification of paths and preparation for what's to come after college. Now, another curricular component is immersive experiences. Students are expected to do at least 2 immersive experiences. We identified the criteria that make experiences meaningful, and then we diversify the types of experiences they can complete, from student leadership to internships to student employment, undergraduate research, community-based learning, study abroad. So we're trying to tap into the things that work for students and things that are accessible to them. And in those 3 components, the course, the e-portfolio and immersive experiences are very intentional focus on the development of transferable skills and the interaction with mentors to help the development and preparation of our students, as well as the support that they have through the process. And we have understood very clearly that none of all these things can happen if we don't bring the community to Drew and engage students in the community. So we have developed 18 communities, 10 of them are career focused, and 8 are identity or affinity focused. And through these, what we do is we help students experience programming that is related to these communities based on their career or identity interests. We also help them, of course, connect with networks and the community. And we also provide curated, integrated web spaces that feed data from multiple systems to bring everything students need in a particular area together in one single place. Part of launch, particularly this fall, we're going through a virtual experience that is really providing us with a challenge to meet our responsibility to connect students to their community. So what we've done is 3 programs as part of what we call 2020 Launch Expo. We have the Launch Communities Panel Series that we're talking about and we're doing today. We have an Immersive Experiences Fair on October 2, coming up soon, and the Launch Communities Fair on October 23. If you go into the Launch Communities Panel Series and click on Find a Panel, then what you'll do is you'll find a series of the sequence of panels that are scheduled throughout the term. You can see all of them here. And if you click on any of them, like in our case today, the Commuter Transfer and Non-Traditional panel, then what we have is our wonderful panelists today. And I encourage you to think of this virtual experience as one that, of course, offers challenges, but also offers opportunities, such as an augmented reality, right? You can be browsing through these stories as you are listening to the panelists. You can prepare questions. You can also, of course, follow up. But there's a way in which you can be interactive. You can also be interacting with the, so in the communities that you see here, have the career communities, and you also have the identity affinity communities. And here you have the commuter transfer and non-traditional. And then it opens in this page that you can see, and you can notice how we're feeding data from multiple systems to highlight mentors with whom you can connect, spotlights, right, of our panelists and other spotlights. We also have student and alum success stories. We have events. We have featured resources that can be filtered, new courses, special electives, and a number of other types of information and opportunities. So these are opportunities for you to explore, to figure out how to connect, and how to engage further. These are not communities of membership. You don't have to belong to them. These are communities of resources and opportunities. One last thing that I want to mention is that maybe Stephanie, this would be a good time to post the link in the chat. So in the chat, you have a copy of the program. So let me share these with you. If you can see that, you have access to this document that also has the links to the community page that I was just showing you, and also to the panel page that we just looked at. And it kind of walks you through what we're gonna do tonight. So if this is helpful to you, then you're welcome to look at this, know what questions we're asking, so that if you're preparing a question, you know whether something is already being asked or not, or is planning to be asked or not. So let me stop there and Stephanie, pass the torch to you so that we can start the moderation of the panel and introduction of guests.
All right, sounds good. Well, welcome everybody again. My name's Stephanie Pelham and I'm the Associate Dean of Student Engagement. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about our panelists' stories. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. So what we're going to ask is that you each introduce yourself. Tell us, how do you identify, why do you identify rather with this group? Were you or are you a commuter, transfer, or non-traditional student? And then if you can tell us a little bit about what your major is, your current position, and maybe how you got to your career path, where you are now. So that's a lot. If you need a reminder, you just let me know and we'll kind of lead you down that path. But really, we just want to know your story. Because you're first on my screen, Fabiana, would you mind kicking it off?
No, of course.
Thank you.
So my name is Fabiana. I am a full representative of this community because I am a transfer, I am a commuter, and I'm a non-traditional student. So I fit all the boxes. So I recently graduated from Drew. I'm the class of 2020. My major was psychology and neuroscience minor. And right now I am aiming to find a job in the research area. I want to do research. So that's what I'm doing right now. What else? Do I have to say anything else?
Actually, I think you hit all the points. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yay.
Abby?
Hello, everyone. My name is Abby. Well, I'm a biochemistry and molecular biology major and also an Italian minor. I'm a sophomore at Drew. This is currently my second year, and I am a commuter. I've been a commuter since the first year that I came to Drew. And currently my career goal is to hopefully become either a pediatrician or a medical doctor. And yeah.
Thank you. Sunita?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sunita Bhargava. Like Fabiana, I also check off all of the boxes. I came to Drew as a transfer student. I was a non-traditional aid student, and I also commuted. I had a family at the time. I was working full-time, so living on campus wasn't an option. But I loved my experience at Drew, and I am so fortunate to work with transfer students that are thinking about Drew to help them through the transfer process. I just love my job so much. So.
Thank you. Alina?
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I had to unmute because I've got a 20-month-old that's yelling in the background. So I apologize in advance for bedtime ritual noises. So I'm Alina Farriman. I graduated in '07, and I was a commuter. And I worked full-time the entire time, and I kind of went gangbusters and graduated a year early because financially that just made the most amount of sense. While there were many benefits to that, there were many drawbacks as well. And I'm cognizant of that. So I was a sociology major, a Russian minor. And since then, my career's kind of advanced all over the map. While in school, I planned on pursuing a degree in law, but life happened and kind of went into a different direction. And now I'm an account relations manager for California Casualty, which actually works with Drew as one of their clients. So it's pretty neat to get back. And then most recently, I've become a trustee member for the Independent College Fund of New Jersey, which has really made things go full circle for me, because part of the reason why I chose to attend Drew was because of a scholarship that I had received. So now I get to work with, an organization that helps provide scholarships for all of the private colleges and universities. So it's really fulfilling to be able to do that. And most recently, California Casualty, who I work for, they've actually contributed to the Emergency Aid Fund, which is essentially a program that's designed to help students that have like a small one-time financial need. And that was really near and dear to me, because most of the students that experience those quick financial needs are in fact commuter and transfer students. So it really felt like a full circle, and it's nice to be able to be part of this panel and to give back.
Thank you so much. All right, so to start us off on your stories, we want to learn a little bit about how your identity has impacted your journey. So again, being a commuter, transfer, non-traditional student, how has that identity impacted your journey? And what challenges or opportunities have influenced your choices on who you've become today? Anybody, or I can go ahead and name. Kick it off with somebody.
I'll go first, shall I?
Yeah.
So I think that as a commuter, one of the identities that you have is that you're kind of on your own, whereas you kind of have to hold yourself accountable. You have to make sure that you're present, that you meet all of the metrics and the responsibilities from group projects, because no one's going to confine you. But you're also trying to kind of juggle everything else. So that accountability, I think, has really helped me, because it's kind of taught me that, you know, you do have to rely on yourself, but you also have to be able to work well with others, and you do have to be flexible with their schedules. And it's really taught me how to collaborate and be more patient. And I think that that's important. But it's also taught me, like there's certain learning curves, because I mean, when you're a commuter, in many instances, you have the benefit of studying when and where it's convenient for you. You get to pick your environment. But once you're in the workforce, your environment is essentially chosen for you. So you're no longer, okay, well, here I am in my quiet bedroom, with the lights done just right and, my perfect snacks aligned. You no longer really have that luxury, because, chances are, no matter what job you start, you're going to do some sort of onboarding. And when you do that onboarding, you're probably in a cubicle. And chances are the person next to your cubicle chews really loud, or is on a conference call or whatever. And those are all things that you kind of learn to adapt and overcome when you're on campus, because you learn how to study in the library, you learn how to be in a dorm room with several people. So while you gain many strengths, you also have to learn certain things once you're out in the real world.
Thank you. Anybody else? How has your identity impacted your journey? Fabiana.
You're on mute, Fabiana.
So as I said before, I am a transfer student. I start my college journey at Raritan Valley Community College, and I transferred to Drew, thanks to Sunita. And so I've always been like an introvert, it's being from another country, speaking another language, being a non-traditional student. So all those things kind of made me set myself apart when I was in the community college, and it wasn't my comfort zone, I was in that bubble. I would go to class, I would come back home, and I would do my project and my homework at home. So I didn't really have to socialize with anybody. But what was a challenge when I came to Drew, I think actually transformed into something good for myself, like a new skill. I mean, I'm not the most sociable person still, but I think I have developed this ability to overcome the fear of talking in public, and like to introduce myself to other people, to start a new conversation. And I think being a commuter at Drew helped me with these challenges.
It's so interesting. Thank you for sharing, to hear how you've taken that challenge and really made it into an opportunity for growth there. So thank you.
I can really relate to what Fabiana's saying because I went to school as a non-traditional aid student. I came as a transfer. So in the beginning, I had this feeling that I don't really belong, or this is for the younger students. It's not really for me. And thanks to the support systems I found at Drew, my professors who nudged me into leadership roles, and the director of continuing education, Trish Lepre, she's no longer at Drew, but she was such a huge support system for me and for other non-traditional students. So I think I really grew in my comfort level and my confidence to put myself out there.
Going off on what Sunita just said, I think the fact that Drew is such a diverse community, I think that's a positive aspect that helps commuters kind of mix in and blend in too, because everyone has some sort of differential in the population, you know what I mean? It's a very diverse community. So I'm commuter, I'm a transfer, a non-traditional student, and international student, but there are people from all over the world, all ages, all backgrounds, and I think that makes the community so much more accepting, to everyone.
Ali was very involved when she was here. We need to get her to Robert and Ali. I recruited them both. Robert was originally, I love their story so much. Robert was originally thinking about Drew, and Ali came with him to visit and decided Drew was for her as well. So it was a fabulous year because we got these two awesome students. So we'd love to hear from them as well.
Oh gosh, Ali had the book, but we were both transfer commuter non-traditional students who really loved Drew. She graduated with an economics degree, I with computer science, and really thought that the culture around Drew really was committed to making sure that people succeeded and stuff, and we really liked our time there. Yeah.
Thank you. It's always one of our goals to make sure that everybody is feeling included and engaged on campus. And just hearing from you all about how that was the case is really great. Abby, do you have experiences you want to share?
Yeah, of course. Well, for me, once I came into Drew, at first I was very closed to the idea of staying an extra 3 hours or 2 hours after classes and, getting engaged with the community. I always thought that, as a commuter, I had to always hurry up and go home, like Fabiana said, go from class to class, and then once class ended, I would go back home. But then I realized that that wasn't the case. I should become more engaged with the community, and I realized that Drew was very open to that. I would go to the library or to the BC Lounge and speak with some friends or do homework there, and just really indulge in the community, go to different clubs or different activities. And I felt that being a commuter really strengthened my ability to make decision making more critically, and also my time management was really my time management skills were also improved after I realized I should instead of just going home earlier at whatever time possible, I should perhaps do homework while I'm I have the opportunity to or have the free time to do homework in the lounge rather than just go home and just try to do it there.
How long did it take you, Abby, to start recognizing and making those changes?
It took me about, I would say, the first couple of 3-4 weeks of school.
Hey, that's pretty fast.
Awesome.
So something that we always stress to all of our students is this idea of building their network. Can you talk to us about what mentors supported your development and how you would recommend students gaining their network? Sure. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. So, I think Drew is because Drew is such a small school, I think the quality of the network that students can make while they're in their college time, it's like unbelievable. I mean, I have done in my time at, I am a transfer student, so I only been there really for 3 years, but I have done at least 3 semesters. I have done work 101 with one of my professors on research, which is like, it was an amazing experience. I had the opportunity to develop and design my own research study and implement it with the guidance of faculty member, like meeting with me on regular basis. And I think that is an opportunity that's awesome. I mean, I'm doing job applications now, and this is definitely something that catches the people who are hiring eyes, because they think that's something really nice. And so I think that this one-on-one time you get to have with the faculty and with the staff, it's really important. Another thing that I think it's phenomenal, it's like, for example, I had a lot of help from Sunita, from Michelle Brisson, throughout my time at Drew. I had a great experience with the counseling center. So I think Drew is like a whole package, you know, you get everything you need. And I was really glad that I made that choice.
Ooh,
Thank
Jen.
you.
Jen is rising.
So does somebody else want to talk to us about how your mentors have supported you here at Drew?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, until I heard Fabiana speak, I kind of didn't realize how much one-on-one attention I really had. I always give a lot of credit to Professor Reeder because, well, I was in his office way too many times asking for him to plan out the rest of my life. I probably still go, but, you know, I don't want to take away from other students. But, you know, as a Russian minor who was a native speaker, who, you know, was a former immigrant, I did complete a lot of the college, a lot of the classwork before it was available. So I was able to work with Carol Euland on almost like a one-on-one study to, you know, translate, you know, movies. So it was pretty much like a design your own one-on-one course. And I think that at a lot of the larger universities, sure, there might have been more class options, or there might have been more, you know, clubs, but you would never be able to get that one-on-one attention. You would never be able to essentially not just design your own program, but to actually take the bull by the horns and say, look, this is what I'm interested in. Help me learn this. You know, and that kind of empowerment, I think, really helps project management skills as you advance in your career, because you're able to identify an opportunity, or you're able to see like, okay, well, wait, here is, you know, a small, you know, missing puzzle piece. And look, this is how we can creatively solve that problem. And ultimately, isn't that the purpose of a liberal arts education, to teach you to be able to think creatively? So in essence, you know, those individual experiences are what deliver the whole package.
I can concur with that. I think getting to know your professors and them getting to know you, were a small environment, so they definitely get to know you well, and they get to know where your strengths lie, and they point you to opportunities that others may never have heard about. So in my case, I too was a sociology major, and my professor was writing a book, and he pulled me aside and he said, I'm looking for a student to help me with the book. And the next thing you know, I'm working on a book with him, and he put my name in the acknowledgements, which was such a thrill to me that, you know, I'm in print somewhere, you know, and if I never write a book, I got in one, you know. And my other professor, I was a creative writing minor, and he was a published author of 3 books more since then, but he had gone to a writing conference, and on the way there, he met an author of Indian origin. I'm of Indian origin, and he came back and told me about this book that she had written, and I read the book and came back and told him how much I loved it. The next thing I know, he said, you know, you need to write a review and put it online, which I was very nervous about, but I did it. And then the author saw it, and she found me, and she got in touch with me, and every book launch that she's had since, she's invited me to join her, and it helped me make connections with people in a field that I was interested in, you know. So I always say, get to know your professors. You never know where one thing will lead to another.
Such a small world. And that's so great. And that's what we try to stress to all of our students, is building this network, and how these relationships that you're forming now will take you so far, and hopefully you'll maintain those relationships. Abby, are you seeing similar things?
Of course, I can agree with what everyone said, especially because Drew is a really small school. You get to not only, like Sunita said, you don't get to know the professor also gets to know you. In my case, my academic advisor, Dr. Casano, he's been really helpful with my reaching like my goals and setting goals for me as well as to how to get to medical school. He's been the one who, even during COVID time, would keep in touch with me and also advise me of ways of how I can get more involved so I can have a good resume for when I get into medical school. And my other mentor was Joelle, who's the assistant director of EOS and SDS. She was the one who actually advised me to join a medical prep program over the summer. I got into the medical prep program, and I was able to do clinical experience virtually, and I also got to meet and network with other medical students. Some were in Temple, some were in Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, and we got to do different workshops, even with the dean of admissions of the medical school of Rutgers. And I felt like without this connection with Joelle, I wouldn't have been able to have this awesome opportunity even during a time like that we are experiencing now.
You certainly made the most of your summer. All right, thank you all. So we want to talk about, how did your experience at Drew support your development and your journey to where you are today? I'll let you think about it.
I mean, I think it continues to support me. I mean, I think the fear of any undergraduate degree is the same fear of any high school degree. Like, what am I going to do with all of this stuff? Like, when am I going to use this in the real world? Nobody uses this in the real world. Who's memorizing sociology terms? And it creeps up on you. You know, like, even, you know, the foundation coursework that you're required to take, or were required to take, things could have changed, but you know, the coursework that you're required to take as prerequisites, they help build worldliness, and they just kind of give you a foundation and base. I mean, you know, for me personally, I'm in sales and marketing. I have to be able to talk to, like, I don't know, a brick wall, and that forces you to have to be able to small talk and to be able to pick up on P's and Q's. And I mean, I can tell you from, you know, sociology alone, like, I can walk into a room and I can understand what the energy is, because I can see, okay, well, who's, you know, who's abiding by the social norms and who is not, what sticks out, who is everybody following. So as opposed to, you know, quickly identifying with the deviant that I might know, you know, I might gravitate towards, you know, somebody who, you know, who the majority are more receptive to, not in a manipulative way, but just kind of, you know, and it gives you an opportunity to step back and observe and to understand what you're looking at.
Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about your current for those of you who are in a career or looking for a career, what is that career? Can you remind us? I know you've already told us, but so that you can tell us which transferable skills did you gain at Drew that you think have been the most helpful in that career trajectory?
Do you want to limit them to how many? Because holy cow, there is a ton. I mean, from time management to accountability to, you know, as a commuter, guess what? If there's bad weather, you have to plan for it to get to class on time. Well, when you commute to work, you get to do the same thing.
Yep.
You know, so a lot of those things kind of transfer over in addition to the knowledge and the skill set and, you know, being able to strategically form a sentence or write an email or, you know, make a friend or identify a relationship with someone that you might not be as comfortable with, you know, so really all of the above. The coursework is absolutely relevant, but even more so, I think that the life skills, especially as a commuter student, it really forces you to prepare yourself for the, you know, for the next step of life.
Yeah, I can concur with that. I think, you know, being able to communicate well with people is very important no matter what field you're in. Being able to plan, you know, organize your thoughts and be able to communicate it well, that's important. Having a thirst and love for learning, I think that's important because that's going to be with you your whole life then. And if you convey that kind of attitude in your work environment, that can only benefit you. So having a passion for something you do is so important. Yeah, it's so exciting for me to be able to talk about Drew to prospective students all the time because I truly do love this community.
It's always so interesting to hear where students are picking up and utilizing these transferable skills. Some of it from the classroom, some of it from commuting in, right? Some of it from the clubs and organizations that they get involved in. So it's always nice to hear how these transferable skills have helped them or helped you, in this case, with moving forward in your career. So, of course, some of the concern from students is what if they don't find their dream job right out of college? So what would you recommend is a good place to start to lay your foundation if you're not finding that job right away?
I guess I'll take that one since I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I'm stealing all the questions. And I don't mean to, but so, I mean, I can tell you that throughout my entire career at Drew, I planned on going to law school. I had taken the practice LSAT time and time again, and I ended up in the 90th percentile. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be the best attorney ever. I take the actual LSAT, and I'm like 48, 42, some abysmal number. And that totally messed up my plan. I was running through Drew so that I can get to law school and get my dream job. This was not supposed to happen. So to me, it's kind of like if you're not getting the job that you want right away, it's probably a sign that you're going to end up someplace better. So since then, I decided, okay, I don't want to be just another attorney, not for me. I'm just going to keep waiting tables and see where life takes me. At which point I ended up meeting one of my life mentors who essentially said, well, hey, I own this company. Do you want to come work for me? And I'm like, heck yeah, I graduate in like a month. Like I got places to go, you know? So the response was, well, you can either get a job developing a dance program, and I had many years of dance, or you can go into sales. And I'm like, sales? Everybody hates salespeople. Why would I ever want to do that? You know, all they do is lie. And he goes, well, why don't you be a salesperson that doesn't lie? And that blew my mind. But it's crazy because if you had asked me during my time at Drew or at high school or at any point of my life, if, hey, you think you want to go into sales? I would have laughed in your face. And now I can't imagine doing anything else. And my friends who ended up pursuing, you know, careers in law and just went because that was their plan and they were sticking to it no matter what, they're miserable. And many of them have had career changes. So I think that the best advice that I can give people is definitely pursue your dreams, but if you're getting resistance, pay attention. There's a reason for it. There's a reason that all of us ended up at Drew. Um, in Madison alone, there's 2 other schools. So if we're here for a reason, not to get, spiritual or anything like that,
Mhm.
but embrace the resistance and see what you're not seeing. Like see that as an opportunity to take a step back and reassess.
Well, just as I tell transfer students that knowledge gained is never knowledge wasted, sometimes they get upset that maybe a course or two didn't transfer in. That's my attitude even in the work arena. If you gain skills in whatever job you're doing, you're going to use it somewhere in your future. It's expanding your knowledge base and what you bring to the table. So embrace whatever job you get and grow within it, is what I would say.
Thank you. It is really important to grow within the jobs or understand why am I here at this moment, right? Because our students and the trend that we're seeing is that so many of us will go through multiple careers and multiple jobs before finding the one that you settle in for quite a while. And then maybe you'll make another change, right? So I think it is comforting for many people to hear that that is a trend and normal, right? So, okay. So how do you recommend we engage in or respond to our current society and global challenges around us?
In sociology, there's a term of, I don't know if I'm going to say it right, but Verstehen, I believe is how it's pronounced. And it really just means trying to see things from the shoes of another. And I think that's so important, to try to be a part of the conversation and try to see things from the perspective of the other, and then convey your own thoughts and try and have them see it from your perspective, so that hopefully we can come to a better understanding. That's what I would say.
That's such great advice. Thank you for sharing. And I think that's relevant not just globally, but within our smaller campus community, right? Is listening to the opinions of those around us and growing from what we're hearing and learning.
Mm-hmm.
So to get back to our commuter transfer and non-traditional topic here, can you tell us what would be your piece of advice for other students who identify with this experience? How would you help them, or what advice would you give them in moving forward?
Robert, your turn.
Oh gosh. I mean, everyone's situation is different, but being part of sort of this affinity group can be very difficult. And, everyone has to sort of figure out the ways that they're going to navigate it. I think I did my best to manage sort of my financial responsibilities and my scholastic opportunities by really keeping my head down and doing the work, and, just like trying to absorb as much as I could, but also like make sure that things get done. That in some ways that meant that I missed out on some of what Drew had to offer, but
Right.
I really tried to get as much out of it as I could. I think also that there's an idea that this is a smaller community of people who have their own challenges, and that brings value to the community as well, because we all have different perspectives and things that we have to deal with, and I think it's important to share that with the community too.
I think it's really important to embrace being, like for my case, a commuter. I think we should, for any commuter, I think they should really embrace it and not feel like you don't belong, like you're different just because you don't live on campus, you're not part of the community. I think it's important to always indulge yourself in the wonders of the community and the activities that occur, because that way you can grow, make connections, network with others, and that would be my advice.
Thank you, Abby.
My advice would be to challenge yourself to make friends. Say hello to one new person a week. And, you know, just say hello and say hello to them the next week. And just watch challenge yourself with just how many new people can you meet. It's a small community, but you know what? Is there a way that you can walk away knowing everybody? You know, like I remember when Tom Keene was president, he knew everybody. And that seemed like the most unfathomable thing. But, you know, as you read like business management books, they tell you like leaders within organizations are the ones that know all of the staff by name. So, you know, everybody's goal is, you know, to advance at some capacity. So why not start small or smaller and just, you know, get to know people. Who knows who they know? I mean, there's some powerful people that send their kids and know people that go to Drew, and maybe that's the link to the next stage of your life or whatever, you know.
I often tell students that you have to embrace Drew as your school. Don't be shy. This is your school now. This is yours. It's going to be on your resume forever. So embrace it and try to get the most out of it. We all come with certain talents, and share those talents, you know, with the community, and leave feeling like, wow, I left my mark here in a positive way.
Thank you. Anything to add, Fabiana?
Yeah. What made a difference for me was my effort to get involved on campus. Like I said, I had that past experience of going from class to home and from home to class. And I tried to do different this time. And I think that made my college experience completely different. I joined a club first, and then from that club I met other students, I met some faculty, and my network started growing. So I think Drew is such a diverse environment that you probably can find some sort of affinity with a group within the community. And I think making that effort to get involved on campus can really make the difference.
Thank you all. So does anybody have any questions that they may want to share at this time?
If no one else has one right now, I have one, but I want to first give the floor to anyone else who might have a question.
I think the stage is yours, Daniel.
If not, well, when I ask a question, maybe give people time to think of their questions. I was a commuter student myself a long time ago. But I thought that one of the most interesting parts of my commuter experience was that I felt that I was living in two different worlds, right? I would run to the university, and I would go to class, and you know, have, as Abby was saying, as many interactions as I could. But then I would run to this other world that none of my peers could even fathom, right? Like, it was such a different, distant reality and very complex type of experience that I was having. And I've always thought that makes transfer students, that makes non-traditional students, that makes commuter students, you know, that experience of different realities versus one that's encapsulated in a college experience. to have a significant advantage, right? Because if you think of the need that we have right now for interdisciplinarity in how we think and how we solve problems, if we think of the very important, as you were saying, Sunita, need for us to see, give other realities a chance, right? To be respectful, assume the same level of complexity in others and their realities. I've always felt that as much as it is a challenge of going in and out of each reality every day and trying to adjust and adapt as you do that, it's also a significant advantage, right? That you begin to there's a level in Dr. Bennett's developmental model of intercultural sensitivity. Like, it's the highest level of integration, right? You can go in and out of different realities, and it becomes such a normal part of the day because you have to. So the question that I have is, have you experienced that, and how has that shown in your experience as a challenge or as an opportunity as you have begun to apply that experience in your careers and in your life after Drew?
Definitely makes you more flexible, right? To roll in and out of different realities, like you said. I never thought of it that way, but it's so true. It's like when you belong to two different cultures, it's a similar experience, right? Where you can fluidly come in and out of one culture and the other without even giving it a second thought. It becomes second nature. And I think you're right. It does give you an understanding, and also it's not only beneficial to you, but I think you have a lens where you look at other people differently as well, where your understanding of like what Robert just said, I so empathize with what he's saying. It's so correct. It's not everybody's journey to be able to immerse themselves as completely as we would like. So I hear what you're saying.
I really kind of feel the same way, but mostly the experience I had was related to summer and going back to school, because I always felt like I had everything going on in my life during the summer, and then when school started, I added that piece to everything else that was going on. And I felt that for other students, they were just immersed in this Drew world, and that's the only thing kind of they were dealing with. And the first week of school for me has always been crazy, it's like adding this big piece of things going on, this new world, like Daniel said, into something that was already confusing and agitated. So I think that kind of helped me with working under pressure, and it's something that it's very common in the work field. You are always working under pressure and with stress. So being able to manage, it's an important skill, I think. And that kind of was something that I could develop during my time at Drew.
Thank you. So one of the questions that was sent in is, what can the Drew community or faculty and staff do to support this population of students?
I think as I'm listening to everybody's feedback, there's really two things that come to mind. One is, I think that, listening to Fabiana's feedback that, oh my God, that first week is insane. And not only is it insane, but you also have the anxiety because you don't know what your course syllabus is going to be. So I wonder if perhaps the commuters were able to receive their course syllabus a week prior or a few days before the first day of class, so that they can plan for everything that they're about to endure, not when they're already there, So, because, you know, many of them are working, many of them, you know, do have families, you know, so I think that that can help. And then, you know, the other thing that I'm thinking, and that's a little bit more cost involved, but I wonder if there were, you know, in addition to like a commuter break room, there was essentially a commuter dorm so that the commuters could sign up in advance that, hey, I'm going to be on campus this week, or I'm going to be on campus, you know, on these nights, and it's, you know, first come, first serve, and priority is given to those who haven't used it. But they would use it when working on, you know, on campus projects. They would use it, you know, to socialize. They would use it, you know, if they're heavily involved in a club. But what it does is it would give them an opportunity to have those organic experiences, but maybe not have to pay the full, you know, room and board, you know, pay a small fraction of it or whatever, right? But, you know, so it essentially gives them a taste of commuter life without all of the financial burden.
Thank you for the suggestions. Do any of the rest of our panelists have ideas on how we can support this population of students?
I think for my case, I feel like a lot of the clubs usually have their events really late at night, and that's something that's kind of tough for me, especially when I have to drive for an hour. And I think that sometimes, every once in a while, there should be more activities that are during times where commuters are most available, and I think that that could really help out in the interaction between commuters and the community at Drew.
Going off of what Abby said, this is something I was part of the student government as the commuter senator, and that was something that was discussed in the past, and I am very supportive of it. I think Drew should have college hours, and so there would be this chunk of time during the day where commuters, residents, everyone would be on campus, and they would have time to socialize, they would have time to attend events, and they would be already there, you know. We wouldn't have to drive back to campus at night or on the weekends. And I think that would be a fair opportunity to everyone. Another thing that I see at Drew that happens very often, and it has happened to me too, I have scheduled my classes like back to back in a way that sometimes I don't have time to even eat lunch, you know? And I think that would be like this rest time in between classes that students could take a break and then get ready for the rest of the afternoon. I don't know how feasible that would be, but I think that really would help the community of commuters.
Well, I think these are all great suggestions that we can definitely keep in mind as we move forward. So are there any other questions that folks have?
Just a remark, if you don't mind. I always tell the students I work with that I have an open door to them. They can reach out to me whenever. I also tell them I'm the first person that you've got to know at Drew, but you're going to get to know a lot of other people that will be on your team. And please utilize those people. If you're struggling in any way, reach out to them. You find your community and use them to help you during your time at Drew.
Thank you.
I do have another question, if it's okay. And another part of what I realized as part of my commuter experience is that you've talked about it in different ways, but that often I felt, as I was coming from outside, right, and I would arrive to a community that was tighter, that was to some extent well connected, not necessarily including me, right? So I would make efforts to feel part of a community and kind of integrate myself, as Abby was saying, and, you know, stick around and talk to friends and things like those. But it was a different reality, right? I was coming from outside. I would have to leave, and they were going to stay, and they would bond even further, and I would, so that feeling of being an outsider, right? And in my case, you know, there were other factors that made me feel an outsider to my experience in college. But similar to what I was mentioning before of how, you know, I felt that sometimes that kind of part of this experience can become an advantage or a disadvantage, right? We can turn it into something that can be powerful. One of the questions that was asked that I wanted to kind of go back a little bit to is where I'm really troubled by the realities we're facing right now. You know, the health challenges and the economic challenges, the social justice challenges, and how much inequity has come to the surface, right? I think that was there, but it just has been
Amplified, yeah.
made so explicit by many of the circumstances that we're facing. I've noticed that a lot of what's happening and a lot of the inequity that has been developed is emphasizing the experience of outcasts in our community, right? And I cannot, as much as I've leveraged on that and grown from that, you know, I remember my college experience as a commuter as one that I'm such a community person. I'm such a bonding person that it was very difficult for me, right, to feel that I was an outsider. And however hard I tried, I was at a disadvantage because I had to go back to something that I really loved, right? But it was just a different type of experience. And I think that because of that, people like us could be in a very important place, at least for perspective, if not for action, to think of ways in which we can at least promote, right, a different approach and a different response to the challenges that we're facing. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts, right? I have always felt kind of a higher level of responsibility to respond to the issues that we have in front of us, because I know how it feels to be an outcast, right? Because I know how it feels to want to integrate myself into a community that, not because they're mean or because just because they are experiencing so much more together and I'm not, right? I'm trying to fit in, and it was this give and take that would be very difficult to navigate, and that was always like different and maybe strange to some extent. So any thoughts? I know that's a deep question, right? Of thoughts that you have experienced, of things you think we should be thinking about or doing, or you would recommend that we think about at Drew and beyond Drew to respond to the very troubling realities that we're experiencing every day.
Do you know, suddenly I'm thinking about 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I was driving one day and somebody started swearing at me as I was driving in another car because I look like I might be from a culture that should be blamed. It's such a stupid thing to think. But I remember being very anxious to get a hold of the flags so that I could show my affinity, you know, the little flag badges that everyone were wearing. And finally I learned that there was a florist in our community that was selling them, and I went there and I grabbed a bunch of them. And as I was walking out, I was so nervous. I had so many things that I dropped them on the floor, and somebody came and helped me pick them up. And all along through my eyes, I was trying to say, I'm friend, not foe. I'm friend, not foe. You know, like it reminds me of that, where you want to be integrated, you want to be embraced, you want to make people feel you're part of, you know, the community, but you look and feel like an outsider, you know, and that is hard. It is hard. Mm. So what is the solution is the question you asked.
Well, not necessarily, because I think it's a very deep set of issues, right? But, what are ways in which we can, to some extent, I think we could see some things that others don't because of that experience, right? Or we could be more readier, right, to engage or to promote or to facilitate, or because we have gone through that. And that always has given me the sense of some responsibility in terms of promoting it in, in my own way and based on the channels to which I have access. But I wonder whether you have felt the same and whether you have done something.
I agree with what you're saying about developing a heightened sensitivity. So for example, if I'm with a group of people and two people are speaking Hindi, which I can understand, yet there's somebody in the room who doesn't understand Hindi, I make a point of constantly translating or trying to bring the conversation back to English because I do not want them to feel left out, right? So I do understand what you're saying about developing this heightened kind of sensitivity to what the other might be feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think there were some opportunities at Drew that I especially felt like an outsider, or I felt like out from the group. So, but the good thing about Drew is every time I identified a situation where my fellow commuters or non-traditional students could have any sort of issue like fitting in, Michelle Brisson was fantastic trying to fix it. So like one of the things about the events on campus, being a non-traditional student, sometimes you feel a little hesitant to walking into an event where you know that there will be a bunch of 20-year-old students, and it feels a little intimidating to walk in by yourself. And I have discussed that with Michelle Brisson in the past, and many of the events on campus, they were open so the non-traditional and commuter students could bring their families. Because if you think about the events occur at night on the weekend, that's family time. So hardly someone who has kids or who has a spouse would leave them at home to come engage on an event on campus. And like, so I myself, I live with a host family here in the United States, and I have brought my host family with me to events on campus. And I think that was a really nice measure, a really nice action that Drew took that helped in that sense, like that commuters and non-transfer students feel more comfortable engaging on campus.
Nice.
So I think like these kind of little things can make a difference.
Right. Can I tell you a very quick story? When I was a student at Drew, a non-traditional aid student, I would wait for people to respond to a question, and when they didn't, I was forever asking questions. And one day I remember going to the restroom and encountering a girl from my class in the restroom, and I said to her, "I'm really sorry, I keep asking so many questions." And she said to me, "Are you kidding me? We love it that you ask questions because we don't take the time to ask, but we benefit from the responses." And she freed me up to feel liberated to just be myself and ask the questions I had, So sometimes the dialogue in our head is different than what people are thinking. What we're imagining is different than what people are thinking, So communication.
Like another example that I have about this, the Thanksgiving dinner in the Commons every year. So this is something that I always wanted to participate, but like as a commuter, I don't have a meal plan. Right. And so like the commuter population kind of feel like a little excluded on that activity. So that was something that Michelle Brisson also worked on changing, so commuters could have like a pass a voucher to go, and they could even bring a guest so they wouldn't feel like anxious. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go to the comments and where I'm gonna sit, who I'm gonna sit with, you know, so that kind of stuff. I think those little, it may sound like a little thing,
No.
but it's like a big thing,
Yeah.
when you think about it.
Mhm. That's great.
Well, I love hearing how those improvements have been made, and I'm sure there's so many more that we can continue to do within our community to make sure that everybody is feeling engaged and included. So thank you all for sharing with us your experiences today. It's been great to learn from your experiences, and I'm sure that the students here in our Zoom and those who are going to listen later will also take a lot from it. So we want to thank you again for your time this evening. And Daniel, do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, just to reiterate how incredible you have been in your wisdom and your insight and your wonderful willingness to share your time with us an evening and kind of try to fight that Zoom fatigue that we're all feeling. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And wonderful job, Stephanie.
Thank you. You all have a good evening and we'll all talk soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.